Hey, what's up everybody? Bdf 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so today we have to race against the clock because the LA Lakers, of course, play at 4:30, much to my chagrin. So I'm trying to get over to Hollywood to get everything I need to get and then get back here by 4 o'clock so I can shower and watch the game comfortably. So it's just like Bible study. You know, that's really what it is. Just like if I have to prepare for Bible study. So as long as I keep a good pace on my walk, maybe skip a couple of train stations, go straight to Target, and then, you know, walk back, I should be able to get back here in time and do everything I need to do for the game. So, you know, I just am very thankful. I was asking God to kind of help me with my entitlement. You know, last night I was kind of up all night. Not really up all night, that's not true, but up a little later than I would like to have been because of the people outside my window. Unfortunately, there's a homeless encampment right outside my window. And, you know, I choose to keep my window open. And there's bars and everything and that. So it's not like people can just get to me. But I choose to keep my window open for ventilation at all costs. And if them being outside the window, it's almost like they're in the room with me. And two, I in the room with them. So it's like hearing them and whatever they got going on kind of keep me up at night for these last couple of nights. But it's very easy for me to just close my window. And so I don't think of myself as, oh, I'm so inconvenienced, let me snitch on these people and call or get these people pulled away from there. Because it's like, yo, I could be out there with them. I have the privilege of being able to close my window. It's warm where I'm at. I got a bed here. Like, who am I to like hate on them because I'm inconvenienced by their presence? And I think that's part of the problem of being natural raised cultured American, is just that we think that we're entitled to things being comfortable versus other people who may be in discomfort being an inconvenience to us, and how it's I guess it's incumbent upon us as taxpayers or payers of whatever it is to feel like their presence should be removed even though their options are too removed. It's one of those situations where it humbles you to understand that, yo, this is what is really wrong with me, and it's not something I placed in myself. It's just the culture from which I'm from. But when you look at what genocide has done to my opinion of things and what it has brought, what poverty is, you know, reflected in that circumstance, forced poverty, you look at homeless people with a bit more of affinity for the circumstances, for the humanity. And that's what, and for me, I've always been a decently wired human being as it pertains to the humanity of others. But this has heightened it and put more of an onus on me to challenge that average mindset of how we view people who don't have enough or who are not, you know, mentally capable of holding their own weight financially or whatever. I don't look at it to say, I pay for this room, I shouldn't have to hear these people outside, without challenging that thought to say, why does the fact that you pay for something make you entitled to the presence of others not being in your way or whatever? Why would you think that just because you paid a certain amount that makes you likely to deserve better treatment than somebody else? I don't find myself being comfortable with those thoughts no more. Like, nah, not at all, bro. Especially when you know a lot of poverty is forced. I look at my own situation and realize I'm at the behest of my family member who's provided for me. I'm not in a position to sit up here and to hold unapologetic entitlement as it pertains to the lives and the struggles of people who don't have anywhere to go. If they found somewhere they can lay their heads without the cops coming and knocking on the door and kicking them out, no door to knock them. But you know what I'm saying? If this is where they can find a place to lay, it's not incumbent upon me to be so inconvenienced to call someone to tell them to go from one place to the next. I'd rather ask the Lord for the strength to not be inconvenienced, nor to be an inconvenience to them with my snoring, you know what I mean? With my window open. So that's kind of what it is. You start challenging yourself to be better than the country you're in challenges you to be in regards to conversations such as these. Because the way that I was raised and the way that I think naturally without being challenged is I pay for this room. I can't damn sleep. They need to get the hell out of here so that I can. And when the reality is that is pompous, as callous, that doesn't respect the desperation from which they are in, and that you can be in that desperate space someday, or only one step away from that desperation yourself, and you don't know where you're going to be tomorrow, and you may need somebody to just be as cool as you are expected to be in this situation so that you can have somewhere to be when maybe you have nowhere to go. And that is where I challenge myself to be better. Challenge myself is to say, this is normal in my world, that we don't give a crap about people if they can't pay their way. And the first thing that comes to mind is they need to just get a job. Why don't the government help them? It's not my responsibility to help them. And I see so many people who have a lot harbor that mentality as accepted around them as well. And nobody challenges these people who have plenty to do something about this circumstance from which I'm talking about. If they could challenge themselves the same way that I am challenging myself or better, some of these people could end homelessness. And I'd imagine, though I never had a conversation with a super billionaire like Steve Ballmer, I'd imagine if I would have a conversation with him and tell him, yo, why haven't you taken a portion of your wealth and fixed the homelessness in the city that you're making money off of? I'd imagine he'd tell me it's not his responsibility. And that if he did for every homeless person, he wouldn't have anything at all. And he would be homeless with him if he gave away all his wealth to try to fix homelessness in this world. And that should be accepted and we walk away from it. I don't know if where I want this world to be going forward when I leave it, that a guy like Steve is able to end a conversation like that without being challenged further. Now, the world I want to leave behind challenges a guy like Steve to do more. Because you have enough to do a lot. And there are people out here who can't do for self. And while it ain't your responsibility, just like we tell people in situations, hold that thought, walk past me. When we consider circumstances where we're working with others, for which the world is, and you're in an environment, and maybe you see something on the ground in the place that you otherwise are in, you can pick it up to overall keep the environment clean, or you can look at it on the ground and say, I didn't throw it down there, so it ain't my responsibility to pick it up, and be comfortable with your environment being dirty. And if everybody engages in that, then nothing will ever be clean. At some point, someone has to say, though it is not my responsibility, though it is not my problem, it is still within my ability to provide a solution. And in providing that solution, the solution is in place that can ultimately affect not only myself with a cleaner environment, but others with a cleaner environment as well. If we're always waiting for somebody to pick up after themselves or clean up after themselves, there's a good portion of time where we will not have a healthy environment or clean environment, because there are going to be people who don't clean up after themselves, who are not capable of cleaning up after themselves, who didn't even know that something dropped. You understand what I'm saying? Let alone that it needs to be picked up. And if you walk past it and refuse to pick it up, and then everybody follows your behavior, it'll never get picked up. And we'll be sitting in a mountain of trash. So it's like, at some point in time, I can't look at you and say, oh, you're fine for saying it's not my responsibility. Because I'm not asking you to harbor it as your responsibility. I'm just saying you have a solution within your ability, and that should be something that we challenge you to take on anyway. Take on anyway. Don't tell me it's not your responsibility. Just pick it up. Don't tell me it's not, you didn't drop it there. I didn't ask you if you dropped it there. I'm asking you to do me a favor and pick it up. And as it pertains to the case of homelessness, there's too many people, especially in this culture, this unchallenged culture, of capitalism who have all the money in the world believe themselves within the confines of what they understand, that they are pretty solid human beings. They may not think they're the greatest people, but they don't think they suck, you know what I mean? And they lay their heads down, sleep comfortably, and the world around them allows them to think that they're pretty solid dudes, you know what I mean? They employ people, they have money, but, you know, we're in the business of gaining wealth. It's not your responsibility, and that type of mentality just gets agreed upon, and then people suffer around us. It's like, yo, stop agreeing to this. Stop agreeing to not clean up after your brother. There are people out here who may be lazy as hell, who don't want to do nothing. And you may convince that everybody's like that if you run into enough of them. And then furthermore, not challenge yourself to clean up after them, because of course everybody's the way I perceive them to be. It's all their fault. I don't have to clean up after another man's fault. But can you perceive the person who doesn't have the ability to take care of themselves? Who has the biggest heart in the world, to where if they had enough and saw you without, they would come and give you something? Or do you not fathom them as you're assessing whether or not it's your responsibility to clean up after the whole? There are good people out here who, if were empowered to have more, would do more than those who have more than them. Some of the best people in the world are out here because they don't want to sell their souls to get money. They don't want to hurt nobody to get money, so they'd rather crawl up in a corner and not be a bother to anybody. Some of the best souls in the world out here on these streets, because they refuse to compromise themselves to get the most of what it is that they ultimately need, let alone what they could hoard. Yeah, there's some people out here who ain't doing nothing. Yeah, there's some people out here who ain't well enough to even think. Yeah, there's some people out here who just, you know, whatever the case. But can we fathom that that's not the whole and the fullness of what's all out here? And if we help everybody, we could be helping some extremely good people too. We always want to give ourselves passes by way of the pessimism we have for the world around us. Other people ain't no good. Why do I need to be that good? Other people wouldn't help me if I was out in the street. Why the hell I got to help them? And then we proceed to reinforce that, for which is the same energy that ultimately we resent. I ain't got to help them people, man. People ain't did nothing for nobody. Why I got to help them? And you proceed to be someone that ain't helping nobody, who ain't doing nothing for nobody. And you convince yourself that it's because everybody else is just like you that you need to be just like them. Mistaken the whole way through, because there's always somebody out there who's willing to do more than you. It's like we got to stop telling ourselves we good people just because we've been rocked to sleep by this selfish culture of capitalism. Not my responsibility to clean up after nobody else. You get your own, I get mine and yours if I can, because that's how we win mentality. Nobody wins that way in the end, because you have a bad reputation historically as we look back on you for being that way, and they end up without what they need historically because you didn't share anything. Just because everybody alive today is sitting in a space from which to agree upon this doesn't mean that the history won't look back upon all of us as a collective source of selfishness that tumbles forward worse because of it. And that is what I'm trying to give us all, the idea that it's worth fathoming, that we can look inside ourselves and say, just because everybody agree with this doesn't mean it harbors good energy when we engage in it. It does not harbor good energy. It looks bad on all of us to behave like that. We could all agree to step on crap every morning, and then the world would be dirty with crap. But we can agree that this should be done, and then the world would be worse for it. Just because we agree upon it does not mean that it's actually what's best. Maybe we have a couple collective lessons to learn as people, and then we'll understand why we should have did things differently. And that we can't fathom that is why we continue to stumble forward in stuff that is no good historically for us. That's the history is going to frown upon a lot of us with. And as it pertains to this capitalistic culture of allowing people to walk around with hundreds of billions of dollars and being comfortable with other people suffering, and then considering those who have a lot being decent people because they're not responsible for cleaning up after anyone else, even though they have enough to do so, that needs to end. That needs to end. It needs to end. Letting corporations get bigger and bigger and then continue to suck the lifeblood out of us as we continue to work hard to pay into their corporations, and they do the bare minimal to help us. They put more into their marketing than they do into the people themselves, giving us stuff a lot of times that ain't meant for our betterment of our health. that exploits us and our needs and our fears, exploits our desperation and our prayer for security, getting wealthier and wealthier and continuing to walk past us as we struggle. It's just, it is something that we've agreed to that is no good for us. And so that's what I'm here to tell y'all, man. There's a lot of stuff that we just comfortable with. That's because we're just not better as humans as we're going to be. We haven't evolved well enough to know that this is caveman-like stuff in comparison to what it's going to be 1,000 years from now when people look back on us. You let that man walk around safe when he had enough to part with a fraction of his fortune. It could have saved everybody from immeasurable amounts of suffering, and you let him walk the earth comfortably? You let him think that he was a decent person for not parting with what he had, a little bit of what he had, or most of what he had to fix all of the problems around the world that he could have fixed. It's like we let this nonsense continue to control us, and then we have this mentality that if we don't allow for it to go this way, that everything that we have deteriorates. We agree that there's no other way but this way, and then from there, everything that comes with it is just collateral damage. Knowing damn well, that if it became a life or death that we find a different way, we would find a different way. But because it's not life or death for us or the collective, and only life or death for those who can't hold themselves up within this culture of capitalism, it's fine that they suffer. They deserve to suffer. Selective humanity is what this is, man. Natural selection is what we call it. Well, that's their problem. They couldn't make it. And I was listening to some last night, the homeless encampment. There was 2 children out there screaming. 1 in the morning. Nothing was after them. They just had mental illness. 2 of them, not 1, 2. Screaming to the top of their lungs, help me and stuff like that. Out on the street. You understand what I'm saying? Out on the street. And so that's what I'm saying to you. Like, you're going to tell me that a guy like Steve can't do something about that? You telling me a guy like what's that dude that owns Tesla can't do something about that? People like that love to look at themselves as good people or decent people or acceptable people. You ain't acceptable, fam. There's people out here suffering, starving. You have plenty to share and part with. Ways to make profits off of helping these people with your creativity. You could profit off of helping homelessness if you really put your mind to it. You just don't care to, because you've been rocked to sleep by a culture that's allowed you to think that you could be a decent person without doing so. If you were properly shunned for that poor behavior, especially as a child, you would have grown to feel awkward in allowing for such to take place while you hold so much. You have failed. And because of it, you failed at your best reputation going forward. People who raised you didn't love you enough to tell you that you would be more respected for sharing than you would be for hoarding every single time. And the culture around you, the village around you failed you in the same. You would be heralded as the greatest human ever if you would part with a good portion of what you have to help those who don't have anything at all. You don't care to. And as a result, you ain't gonna be loved like that. Poor you. That's what our country and our modern times is failing to do. Is help people understand how poor they are for being selfish in the presence of those who need them. How poor we are for continuing a culture that allows for us to believe that we're decent human beings when we have the ability to help others and refuse to. And it's agreed upon around us. What a crying shame, man. That's what I have to say. So for me, it's like, because I have the ability to think for myself, because I have enough desperation in my life and enough people helping me in my life to know how appreciative I am of that help, and to know how much I appreciate and how much good energy is placed upon those who've helped me, and how much love I have for them for the presence of their support, shows me how much love is being robbed for those who refuse to help others. because they've convinced themselves that the world is not worth helping, or that they don't have to, or that it never even crossed their mind, it's their responsibility, or whatever the hell they're telling themselves. They've been robbed of something that's going to have great devotion attached to it. Great appreciation attached to it. People want to build statues for them for these reasons. And they don't care. They're leaving all that love on the table because they don't even know that that's something to want. As much money as they're spending on security trying to protect themselves from the poor, they would have the security if they were to pour that money into the poor. Because the poor would be wanting to jump all over anybody that come anywhere near them, because of that devotion that would come from ultimately feeding the wolves, so to speak. But this culture will have you shaming people who think that way. Or you're going to give all your money to the poor, you're going to end up like MC Hammer. Giving all your money away and you ain't going to have nothing for yourself. The bleeding heart leads bleeding pockets. And all these different type of mentalities that hold some weight, but very little faith. When you worry so much about that, you also don't see the variables where good things can come from that. You also don't see the variables where people are going to be wanting you to have so much because they know you're going to share so much. I'm telling you, we incorporate just a little good energy into what it is that we're doing, we could revamp a lot of problems in this world, man. A lot of problems. If we would just not be so worried about what goes wrong if we don't do what is poorly spiritually enriched. It's poorly put together from a spiritual standpoint. And that's what capitalism is. It's poorly put together from a spiritual standpoint. It's poorly structured so that those who win the game are most resented. Those who do it right are viewed wrongly in the long run and are solutions for so much suffering, yet absolutely would never bring themselves to be the solution to those problems. And the ones who would be most willing to give are the ones out there in need. That's the irony of it. And if we read energy properly, without listening to the evil ones tell us who the evil ones are, which is obviously never them if they're telling the story, we would know exactly where to put our emphasis and the good energy and our intentions to help where we do. A lot of people are putting a lot of money into charitable efforts that lead to wicked deeds. That's what I've come to understand. A lot of these programs are owned by people who are doing horrible things to people all over the world. That is what has been proven to me over the last 500 days. I wouldn't have said that a year and a half ago, but it's become very clear to me that some of the worst people in the world own some of the most biggest charitable organizations. And there's a lot of people who are pouring their money trying to be charitable into these organizations and not putting them in circumstances where otherwise they've been told they shouldn't, because everybody around is either dirty, don't want to help themselves, not worthy for whatever set of reasons you can tell yourself. And they think they're good people because they're pouring their money into these charitable organizations, and they think they're responsible people because they're not turning around and pouring the money into spaces where it needs to go. Ask the devil in the details of the circumstances of this country a lot of times. So what you end up having is billionaires, when they want to do something out of the goodness of their heart, often pouring money into organizations that pour the money back into other billionaires' hands and pockets. They ain't helping nobody out here. But they get to lay their heads down thinking they're good people because they've been charitable. But to where? Yeah, they said they were giving that money to Congo, but they weren't giving that money to Congo. That money was going somewhere else. That's what I'm saying. It's like these are the type of things that have become so clear to me. So it's like, are we really good people? When we live in a space where we hoard so much, part with some of it, put it over there, don't give none to none of these people over here who really need it, and then from there just walk around and say, well, it's not my problem to fix this problem, fix that problem. Anytime I want to be a good person, I just pour into that organization. Like, listen, I'm not going to help this homeless area, streets, none of that. I don't care about none of that, but I'm going to give my charitable donations to this school. And now I'm a good person. And I sleep my head down at night because I know I've done good. You ain't do it. It ain't good. That's not good. A lot of them may know that. And their charitable intentions are meant to be a facade for the real selfishness that consumes them. And they don't have any problem with pouring their money into places where they can just pick from it later on and call it charitable donations. But some people genuinely want to be decent people in that regard. Some people genuinely want to feel like they're contributing when they have a lot. And they too are pouring their money into these organizations that don't do squat for people who really need it. All I'm telling you is, as a community, we need to start holding these people accountable. You are not a good person because you have $20 billion and you gave $500,000 to your alma mater school, fam. That's not, your school don't need that money as bad as the homeless do. And you know it. And maybe you were raised to think, oh, they're dirty ends. I don't care about those people of color. You get them, send them back to wherever they're from. All types of different evil thoughts that keep you from being a blessing to good people. Keep you from being a blessing to good-hearted souls who would give if they had. And will have if you give. Everybody wants to separate people from by way of class and, you know, bigotry, all different types of colorism, all different types of stuff that we subscribe to as human beings. To raise ourselves and our children to believe that, well, you don't have to touch them, they ain't dirty, don't go around them because they awful, and look how they treat one another, and we don't, it's not my responsibility to be a solution to them, and if I do go over there, bad things gonna happen to me, so let me stay away from them and let the bad kill each other. That's not the bad. You've been told that's the bad, you believe that's the bad, and it was inaccurate information. It wasn't the bad. There were some bad over there. But leave room for you being mistaken. And a lot of them refuse to. Why? Because they won the game. They know everything. They got all the money in the world. Why wouldn't they know everything? Who are you going to listen to? Somebody who don't have money? This is where we often end up allowing the devil to live in comfort in our midst. Because you end up having people separate one another from each other's wisdom based on things that don't have nothing to do with anything wise. I ain't listening to him. He ain't got no money. If money's the motive, then yeah, he probably don't know how to get it. But if devotion and love, support, and commitment and safety is the motive, he probably know a lot about that. You probably need what's in his head. Because what he does know about, he knows a lot about. And maybe if you shared some of your wisdom, he could have more of what it is he doesn't have, and then you both can be enriched by the presence of your friendship. But because you're separated by classism or racism or religious extremisms and all these different isms, sexisms, all this, you know, different stuff, phobias, all this and that, you don't ever get what each other needs, and y'all continue to be bankrupt in what each other has. You don't read energy well at all. And we just continue to grow resentment from there. And let propaganda teach us the rest. It's getting to a point where it's like, because of the presence of the genocide that just took place, it's given me a compass from which to point a lot of different things. I know exactly how to get to where God wants me to be. I know exactly how to tell people, hey, don't look at things the way that they taught you at, because they were liars. I have the proof. I've seen the proof. They didn't mean us no good when they were teaching us these things. This doesn't happen to just be culture. This was invested in so that we would hate ourselves, so that we hate other people, so that we wouldn't care to help somebody else, so that we would value money over helping somebody else. These are the type of things. They didn't care about us. They wanted us to hate one another. They want us to hate ourselves. And therefore wouldn't see it worthy within us to challenge ourselves to be better people, because what's the point? If you hate yourself, why you want to be a better person? There's so many applications of that in American culture, in Western world culture. mastered sorcery that is meant to make the subject happily hate themselves and others. Happily allow for others to suffer. Wish only the best for themselves, but don't actually put themselves in a position to have the best. Devilish confusion ruining our world in so many different facets. And if we can't think our way through it, like I'm trying to, we're going to continue to do more damage. And unprecedented things come from that damage. Things that we don't yet know nothing about, but are going to know so much about later on. Because we continue to pass forward trauma and indifference, hatred, selfishness. And cultures of self-hatred and devilish confusion. And so that's what I'm here to say, man. I recognize that a lot of what it is that came from my upbringing was enriched in American culture of capitalism. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine if I can win. Indifference to the suffering of others, because damn it, it ain't my problem. That's their problem, and they probably dirty in any way. They probably going to take from me any damn way. A desperation I can't relate to, nor should I have to, because I have the inspiration within me to drive me toward what it is that ultimately they can't get. And if they just can't get it, they're lazy. That's their fault type energy. Don't leave no room for nobody to get nothing. Even though there's so many who could part with so much and not be without. People suffering. People killing themselves with alcoholism. Out here in these streets, can't buy a buck. Don't have a buck for food, but have a buck from you that they pour into their vice to help them cope with the fact that they can't afford anything other than either liquor or food. They choose the food second, the liquor first. Like, you could do something about that epidemic, man. You could do a lot about an epidemic. But you're going to invest in your school. You're going to invest, you know. That personalized me-ism is what I call that. I had so much come from going to this Boys and Girls Club. But even though this Boys and Girls Club is in a rich neighborhood, I'm investing in them having, like, you ain't doing shit for nobody, bro. You just personalize your own self just like you do when you hoard your money. Do something for somebody who don't have anything, then you're actually giving. Not when you just do stuff for those who already have, who can get that money from a million different places and are so blessed to get it from you. Like, that's American vanity. That's what that is, vanity, bro. That's not real goodness. Nothing really actually helped. No one who needs help is actually helped in those situations. And it's time to start telling people that. It's time to start saying that to people. Normalize pointing at people and saying, you're not helping good people get out of hard, difficult circumstances. You're helping people who have a lot get more. And then from there, nobody who needs has anything at all. And you just continue to think of yourself as great people, but you're not. You just haven't been raised by a village that will properly chastise you for your selfishness. That's exactly what that is. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. Let compassion be your true north. If you're not going down that road, then what you're doing is not really of God, in my opinion. We got to start just normalizing telling people that, man. Rip the Band-Aid all the way off. If you call yourself a good person and do something for someone who needs something, you know what I'm saying? Don't think about yourself first and second. Or listen to people who've poisoned the well as it pertains to the people that ultimately need your help, and you saying, nah, I'm not going to help them because I believe that asshole who told me they were bad. When if you look a little closer at that asshole, you will realize he's already proven himself to be an asshole to you in a lot of cases. That arrangement that you have with that person probably ain't even anything other than conditional in business. And then in a lot of cases, they likely want to see you fail. While you taking advice from them in those cases. But you read energy poorly, you put money first, you put class first. And so you end up finding yourself going down paths where you're worse for it. Helping nobody. Being a solution to nothing. Hoarding everything. Bdf 44, I thank you all for watching.